To everyone who's joining us tonight. I really appreciate it. I wrote a few words that I just really wanted to share with you to kind of kick us off, if you'll allow me. When Carrie and I began life in 2007, it was with the intentions to provide a facility that spoke to the quality of services we believed our consumers deserved and that represented our mission. Further, we wanted to provide an environment that provided a loving, nurturing, and safe experience to both our consumers and our families. We believe the environment helps our consumers achieve higher skill acquisitions and promotes a sense of safety and security for our families, which potentially lessens their stress on a daily basis. From that time to this time, our intentions have not changed. Given we have a larger facility and we are serving a higher consumer base, we believe our responsibilities must continue to grow to ensure we stay true to our mission and our original intentions to best serve those at life. It continues to be my highest priority to ensure you as a parent feel every day when you leave your loved one with us that life is doing all it can to provide the safest, most loving, and nurturing environment possible. I hope our town hall tonight further instills the security in which we strive to obtain. I would like to remind everybody, if I may, what our mission is. Working together to empower people through extraordinary services for developmental disabilities. I'd like to remind everybody the why. Life began as a dream by two women who created an organization to help children like Lauren. They believe that people with disabilities deserve better care than what has historically been available. At Life, we provide extraordinary services, including team members working together in our transdisciplinary approach. And with this, I want to thank you again for joining us, and I'm going to turn it over to Miss Brittany.
Hello, I wanted to discuss the objectives of today, in addition to hearing our mission and why from Margaret. First, I'd like to introduce our panel. Then we'll take some time to discuss our processes, how we've come from 2015 to where we are now, and then discuss supports and resources, prevention strategies, and the impact that we've made in the community by partnering with different community entities. So to introduce our panel, today you'll be hearing from Margaret Trevelyan, our CEO and co-founder, myself, Brittany Prohaska, the Executive Director of Contracts and Operational Processes, Ashley Watsky, our Director of DTE, Tammy Jursic, our Director of Outreach, Training and Consultation, as well as April Yarn, our Director of Academy Student Services. So again, I really like to take a moment to discuss our history. And the reason why I do that is because it was a long one. We started in 2015 when we came to this property. Our property is over 9 acres. We were growing at a large capacity, and we had little to no experience in our drills and our evacuation procedures. So we had those difficult conversations. We sought support from our community, and we sought support with different emergency procedures and how we can help our property and our population. Then between 2015 and 2018, we did more of a discovery phase. We gathered a lot of material, we created processes, we sought community support to assess our evacuations and lockdowns. We maintained an open mind, and it was really geared to one solution, which was how can we provide a secure, trauma-free emergency protocol to keep our consumers safe while they learned the function and the meaning behind the procedures. So through Gilbert, PD, and fire, and a very, very long phased introduction to procedures and drill practice, in 2018, we finally had our set sort of robust emergency protocol. And now we could take that protocol and start being proactive instead of reactive. In 2020, we definitely hit our first uncontrolled barrier, COVID-19. And while our leadership team pushed out pandemic policies, we had to evaluate emergency protocols because we did have to keep a certain number of individuals within a congregate care level to maintain safety, not only when evacuating, but also keeping safety for COVID-19. And through this, we even learned more. We had to individualize our procedures, and we were able to gather individualized input and suggestions and feedback, which created an even better procedure, which led us to 2023 in the present. We have even more consumers, we have staff, we have more visitors, we have more volunteers, and our procedures continue to show the effectiveness of our staff and of the teachings and our leadership team to ensure the safety of our consumers. While we are still learning, and these processes will always be ever evolving as the world continues to change, technology continues to change, and we find more barriers, together we come to support those that we serve. And we're happy to share that this commitment to our protocols has really served an even larger purpose to our consumer and their safety. And we hope eventually to the reprieve of you and the families and the parents and the guardians. So how did we get from 2015 to now? And what did we do? Well, we really assessed the strategies. And once we identified the strategies, we made an impact. So the first strategy was to identify how to evacuate a very large property, especially when supporting individuals with varying needs and ambulatory skills. And how can we then utilize the current resources we have, and are we even utilizing them appropriately? Our second strategy was targeting the drills while limiting the trauma on consumers and staff, and creating and reinforcing lockdowns and evacuations, and having meaningful and functional conversations with our consumers to build skills, to build knowledge, to build generalization. Lastly, our third strategy was pursuing the right visual and physical supports. We wanted easy access to procedures so they can grab the information, have the knowledge ready to read, especially in high and intense situations. We wanted support kits and medication bags at the ready to help our consumers. And so really strategy 3 helped us identify resources and helped us consider what could we be utilizing to make these procedures better. And one of the things that we also needed to consider was the ratio of our consumers to our staff. We needed to consider the ratio of consumers who are ambulatory or need ambulatory support. And we identified that through administrative support, we could assist classrooms and programs in evacuating safely and quickly. And additionally, we had individuals assigned to assist with traffic concerns, medical support, and behavior obstacles. Next, we took time to analyze what can we do to ensure that consumers and staff are accounted for. Strategically, we assign them areas to evacuate to. And with this, the placements allowed us an easy visual to start roll call and gain information fast in that time-sensitive situation. And we were able to receive that information quickly in order to determine that people were safe. Additionally, we created tools, and these tools were helped to maintain evacuation and lockdown supports. For example, we have the easy to grab emergency policies. We have emergency meds, individuals who carry those emergency meds, it will go with them. We have reinforcement tools for individuals that need that reinforcement, both in a lockdown and an evacuation. We have medical support bags, especially in a evacuation situation, and those contain our multi-use blankets, spray bottles with fans, weather protecting umbrellas, first aid kits, an emesis bag, and water bottles, and those are upkeeped by our health and safety administrator. And in extended lockdowns, we do have emergency buckets, food and water as well, which again is updated through inventory. So now I want to take an opportunity to summarize our processes, and we will be giving you access to our procedures at the end of the presentation. You'll have the ability to scan and keep those. For a lockdown, the goal is to ensure the safety of all of our children, staff, and visitors that are on the property and there's a threat. So throughout the year, Life will practice drills, so both consumers and staff can become familiar with the emergency procedures. And by knowing the lockdown procedures, practicing genuinely, we can teach the steps to help consumers get to safety quickly. So in summary of the lockdown process, a lockdown or a drill will be announced. The location and observation of threat is announced. So in a real lockdown situation, we will announce where the threat is and any observing characteristics of the threat. We do practice this in the drill. We ask that safe staff get to their self and consumers safely to an immediate location away from those threatened locations. Staff are also required to sweep, and when they sweep, they're supposed to open the door and sort of look for any individuals that they can bring in quickly that may not have heard the lockdown announcement or may need some assistance to come into a secure location, and ensure that everyone comes to safety. Then all staff and consumers will report to that safe location and away from threat and begin that lockup process. And when they lock up, they must lock all their doors and windows, drop shades, clear desks, turn off lights, get out of sight, hide behind any barriers if they're available. If no barriers are available, we ask that they hide along the wall underneath the windows, and then we ask that they remain quiet. And again, we do have the reinforcement tools to help our consumers be successful in these situations. Lastly, staff will listen for the clear. They'll remain in the lockdown or the drill until an identified member of the director team calls or there's a clear from EMS. Next, I'd like to go over our shelter-in-place process. Shelter-in-place is a weather emergency, an environmental hazard such as a chemical release or air pollution, or any sort of local emergency requiring shelter-in-place. And so it does operate differently than a lockdown. We are alerted through front desk or a reverse 911 or CNS system if a shelter-in-place needs to be alerted. Staff are again required to sweep and look for any individuals that need to come to shelter and ensure that doors are locked and windows are shut. When in shelter in place, normal operations and activities can continue inside the locked building. If transition is needed, if an individual needs to transition from one part of the property to another part of the property, and we're able to facilitate that, a member of leadership will assist them to do that. Rooms are asked to stay secured until an identified member of leadership or EMS gives some sort of clear. We will communicate via phones, radios, and Elevate, which is our personal communication system. And in the event that a shelter in place becomes extended, management will initiate an action plan. In those situations when we're communicating with parents and guardians, in a minimal time resolved shelter in place, leadership will send an e-communication with details of that lockdown or of that shelter in place. For extended shelter in place, an alert message will be sent via text and email messages, and we'll discuss what that looks like later on in the presentation, and any sort of communication that needs to be continued through that action plan that we create. And again, supplies are in place in each environment to support extended shelter in place or lockdowns, and staff are required to maintain the inventory of that. Julie, I see you have some questions for us.
Yes, I just have one question. It says, are classroom doors left open during the day, or are teachers having to lock them in an urgent situation?
I think that's a great question. Because of the weather in Arizona, it's hard to leave our doors open with our ACs. Sometimes we like that airflow. We do not lock classrooms throughout the day in operations, but we do lock when the classroom or program space is not in use. And I don't know if Ashley, you want to say anything to that?
We don't lock them for other reasons as well as we have many outside individuals that need to come into the group. So that's another reason why we don't lock those doors. But our campus as a whole is secure and is locked at all times. So it will always be locked as those are into the campus. You can enter in as well.
Pretty strict policies on getting in with, if you don't have a pass, we're taking you to the front to make sure that you are cleared, and we sign you in so you have a badge to ensure everyone's safe, so we know who's on our campus at all times.
Thanks, Ashley. Julia, do we have any more questions? Thank you. All right, continuing on, the next process I wanted to review is our evacuation process. And this policy identifies steps to take in reaction to a potential fire or environmental threat that jeopardizes the safety of staff and consumers on the property. In addition, it outlines the roles and responsibilities of individuals throughout the duration of evacuation. This is when we really pull those resources to help evacuate quickly, safely, and swiftly. To summarize our evacuation process, when a drill is announced or an alarm is triggered, the occupants will gather at a designated meeting place with their radios and emergency bags that we discussed. And programs are actually assigned to exit the property at a specific location and then re-enter our location of roll call at a specific location. Assigned meeting point leads, those are individuals like teachers or leads or program directors will then take attendance for their assigned area. And that will include any community partners, interns, or visitors that are within that program with them. Then utilizing a map and our evacuation attendance sheet, the facilitator or myself will call roll, and each program will let us know if they are red or green, and that will indicate if they're missing someone. Then once compliance is reached, the facilitator or myself will continue to communicate with our staff regarding where we're at in the process. If this was a true drill, can we re-enter, or do we need to wait a little bit? Once we give the clear, staff and consumers are able to re-enter safely, and we then continue to document those processes for better improvement for the future. And I do see we have an additional question, Julia.
Yes, the question is there a procedure during fire drills to first assess the safety on campus before kids begin to stream out of classrooms?
That's actually a wonderful question. We have the ability in one location to see where the fire was triggered or where the location was triggered. And so one of the first things that is done is our front desk administrator or myself will immediately go to that location to identify where was the alarm triggered. There are also situations where individuals know where it was triggered and they'll communicate it immediately via radio. There are times where you can visually see the smoke. This is something that we hope to eventually, within our procedures, imitate so that individuals can learn to navigate around that barrier, as they may not always be able to exit the same location, but we do have the ability to see where the fire or the alarm was triggered. And I hope that answers your question. Thanks, Julia. So I'd like to actually introduce Tammy, our Director of Outreach, Training, and Consultation, to discuss our reunification plans.
Thanks, Brittany. So one of the things that came up, especially this past July with the weather being as warm as it was, is if we do have to evacuate the property and we are not able to re-enter, whether because there's an ongoing issue, there's a situation that it's unsafe, there's bomb threat, whatever the case may be, we have about 400 people on campus, pretty much on the average every day. So what we're looking at is what do we do with 400 people who have a varying degree of needs? So like we kind of talked about earlier, we have quite a few individuals who have ambulatory needs. We have individuals who need assistance. We have individuals who can transition physically, but maybe struggle emotionally to do that. So in the meantime, when this came up, we were talking about what do we do with all of these people? So I reached out to the emergency manager in Gilbert, and we are actually meeting tomorrow to work on a plan of how do we transition all of the individuals from this campus safely and where do we go. So the current process is being built, but the idea is that we are going to move over to the Civic Center. It's on the same side of the street as that we're currently on. It is a little bit of a walk, about 1.5 to 2 blocks down. And what does that look like for our consumers? How many emergency personnel are going to need to be assisting in that? Do we need to divide and conquer due to either the size of the location we'll be meeting at? And once we get there, how do we communicate where each individual is? So this is something recent that was brought up. We don't have anything in writing just yet. I'm hoping to get that done tomorrow, at least a game plan when I meet with the town of Gilbert, and we'll go from there. After I get all the information, we'll solidify it and hopefully send it out. But Ashley can talk more about some of the other barriers that we run into, and she can let you know where we're going next.
Thanks, Tammy. Julia, can I get a thumbs up to make sure you can hear me? I apologize for earlier, guys. I guess my computer doesn't like me very much right now. But I'm going to talk about the benefits of drilling and why we do it. This is super important, not only for our staff, but also those that we serve. And there's many different reasons. So the first one is we identify all of our barriers that could come up, whether that be there's too many people exiting from one gate, or we needed more items to help those that we serve to be successful to get out. But also we take feedback from our staff during these, that what worked, what didn't, what can we do to better support? Is there something different that you feel like we could do that maybe we didn't think about? And so we do have that open communication with our staff and also those that we serve when we are doing this. Another thing is practicing is gonna, it's gonna make us get better every single time. So we are building on the skills of the evacuations that we try or our lockdowns that we're doing. The more that those that we serve and our staff understand, the more successful we're gonna be, and the more prompt they're gonna be to exit the building as well as do it safely. We have the open communications when we are working on these skills with those that we serve, even down to that we will do it in our classrooms and program spaces just individually before we do it as a whole, just to be able to work on that at an individual basis. We do mark alarms in classrooms and in program spaces just to give them a little bit more confidence in what's going to happen and what they can expect. That also gives us the understanding, and those that we serve, what do we need to be successful? Do we need to have headphones in our emergency bags for those that we serve? Do we need to have extra fidgets in these bags whenever we exit, just to ensure that it's successful, but also that we're doing it promptly? We also want to be able to generalize what we're doing, because we don't always use the same treatment space that we're in every single time. So we want to be able to know, if we're in the teen room, this is where we're going. If we're in the classroom, this is where we're going. And this goes for our staff as well as our students and consumers, because we do utilize our entire campus, but the exit strategy for every environment could look different. So we make it a point that our staff get every evacuation plan so they can review that they know, oh, we use the sensory gym, this is where we exit if we're in here. So they are aware of all of those situations to be able to do that promptly and safely in those situations. But also for our consumers, we don't always have the same staff. And so what they may have been with the same teacher for a couple of years and got to do that same drill with them. And then the next year they might have someone new and have new staff that are not familiar with them. So we are able to generalize that, and so they understand that they're going to be safe regardless of the staff members that are going to be with them. Another big thing is we want to always remove the trauma. We understand that these situations can be scary, and we don't want that to be the case for our staff or our consumers. That's why we do the drills, and that we kind of ease into the drills that we do with not using an alarm at first and just walking through it without it being, you know, a scary situation at first. But then we do some that are not planned, that are not that our staff are not aware of, and we do utilize the alarm so we can practice in those real life situations, because some day that something could happen, we aren't able to predict those things. And so we want our staff to be able to function as well in those emergency situations and know exactly what to do. Julia, you have some questions?
Yes, I actually have two. The first one's going to be for you, Ashley, and then the second one, I'm going to go back to Brittany. So our first question is, are you practicing lockdowns in each room as well? And how do you address noise with neurotypical kiddos?
That's a great one. So whenever we're running through this, we use social stories and different ways to tell them and show them how we need to be quiet in our classrooms. We might everyone play the quiet game. There are different strategies that each individual staff member teacher that they may utilize in that, because sometimes it's really hard for our kiddos to have that noise level down, and we understand that, but we just try to teach to it the best we can and use different examples and scenarios for our kiddos to understand.
Thank you, Ashley. Brittany, this one I think is for you. How often do you practice the emergency drills?
I love this question. So for evacuation procedures, we practice them monthly. For lockdowns, we practice them quarterly, but I also have a goal to practice them more often than that because we have fidelities that we try and make sure that our staff are properly understanding the procedures. It also gives our individuals and consumers more ability and more meaningful time to understand the procedures and the protocols behind it.
Miss Brittany, could I pop in just real quick? I know that this is going to come up probably in a few minutes with regards to addressing the fidelities, but I do think it's important to share with the families that part of what we do in leadership during lockdowns is we actually walk the property and we're testing and gauging all the environments, from the noise to the doors, to the shades, to everything. And I don't know how we do it and how it's done, but I can assure you that the environments are extremely quiet. And I don't know what the tricks are that the teachers are using, but whatever they're doing is working. And in the rare situations where we may have heard noise, we do address those to make sure that once again, if we've missed something with a certain child, that it does get addressed the next time around. But it is remarkably quiet. And I honestly, I don't know how again it's done, but it's done. So I just wanted to be able to share that.
And the parent who did ask the question did say, that's very good to know. Thank you. So I want to make sure to give that on. And then if you don't mind, I did just get another question in. So what is the communication plan to parents and guardians when any of those things happen in the event of an emergency? Are we going to know exactly where our child is and how they are?
Yeah, so that's another great question. We do talk about our communication platform in just a little while. But I can assure you, yes, you will know every time that we have a drill or an actual emergency situation does take place. We will touch on that in just a little bit in another slide, but yes, you will know. Okay, our next one is how we utilize support and why it's so important for us. So we serve around 300 consumers on site each day. And we employ 115 direct service staff, meaning they are the ones that are in the classroom. They're the ones with your kiddos, and they're the ones doing the day-to-day. And then we have around 36 non-direct support staff. So that could be anyone from leadership members that are not direct. It could be our back office staff, maintenance staff. We have a lot of individuals as well that are not direct with those that we serve. With this, you will see in our charts here that we have a lot more consumers than we do our staff members, but I can assure you we utilize every single staff member here on campus. We assign all of our non-direct staff to environments that need that extra support. So we might have some, as you'll see, 14% that are ambulatory but need a little bit of extra support. And then we have consumers that utilize wheelchairs, and we also will need support just to ensure that we are promptly getting out of our campus, but also doing that safely. So we will assign them to all of these environments to ensure that we have all hands on deck, everybody knows where they're going, and we have enough hands to get us out of the campus. Julia, you have another question?
Yes. As the academic year begins, are parents welcome to the first drills to assist at all, or would it complicate the process?
That's a great question. So we are fine with our parents coming on campus and seeing our fire drills. We're all about having that, but being with their students, we don't like to do that because that's not going to happen on a day-to-day. And so when we understand that the comfort for your kiddos or that those that we serve, it may give them comfort. That's not our reality and what will actually happen, but we are more than happy to have families come just to be able to witness and see what happens and what takes place. We have actually been able to show other individuals whenever we have drills and what that looks like, which we talk about in just a little bit, but absolutely, we just reach out to your classroom teacher, or probably Miss Brittany, and her information is listed on here. She can let you know when our first one will be scheduled. And then this next slide is going to just show you, we like to be pretty transparent with our stats. So you'll see in 2005 where we were with our minutes in getting out. Our goal is to always be under 10 minutes. You will see that we were pretty good in 2015, but we were not nearly serving as many as we currently are now. And then you'll also see in 2020 that our number looks fantastic. COVID kind of had a hand to play in that because we did not have nearly as many individuals that we were serving on a day-to-day basis. So it was a little bit easier for us to get out of the campus. With this, we do monitor and we do keep track every single time we do an evacuation of any kind. We see how long it takes from the moment that we call that to the last person that's out of campus and we clear the campus. We keep track of all of that. We also share that information with our staff, just so they know this is where we were at this time. As well as when we send that information, we also send that out to our staff with the barriers that we saw, that we witnessed firsthand, and then they are also able to share that back. But we are very honest with and transparent with our staff and what our goal is and what we are trying to achieve during that time. All right, it looks like we don't have any questions, so I will turn the time over to Miss April.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you guys for coming and joining us for this. I wanted to take a moment to talk about safety within our classrooms and environments. So at the beginning of the year, each of the parents receive our student handbook along with our student code of conduct. So while this goes out to the academy families, we do utilize this code of conduct just for all consumers on campus that we serve here at Life. So please note that, it's important for us to ensure we are creating a safe learning environment. And we do have here at Life a zero tolerance policy for students hurting other students, students hurting staff, and students destroying property. Now with this, we definitely understand that every child is on their own learning journey, and we strive to teach to each child and their needs. And so we want to make sure that, you know, wherever the students are, we are teaching them the skills that they need to be successful. So with this, our handbook does discuss some disciplinary actions. So I just wanted to take, you know, a little bit of time to discuss our incident review process. So when these incidents do occur, you guys can kind of have an idea of, you know, how we start when they start occurring, and then how we kind of work through them as they continue. So as I mentioned, when incidents occur within the classroom, our staff are all trained to write incident reports. And these incident reports have very descriptive information as to, you know, what was happening before the incident occurred, what's happening during, what's happening after, so that we can get a pretty clear picture of the situation. These incidents all come through myself for the academy, or an assigned director for other departments. And we look at these incidents and we look for those patterns, and we begin tracking them to see, okay, is this just a one-off? The student was having a bad day, or maybe there is something a little bit deeper and we have to continue looking at it. We also, you know, if the incident wasn't egregious, we start parent communication. So you parents are always notified anytime an incident occurs. And then when we start to identify that there is a pattern, which does happen after 3 incidents of the same nature, myself and the teacher will reach out and just kind of say, hey, you know what, we're starting to see this behavior. I'd like to start some observations, or you know, work with the team on deciding if there are certain strategies that we need to put into place. I also start, you know, asking questions about how things are going in home, if you guys are also seeing the same things, just so we can get a clear understanding of what's going on. And when these trackers, we will start a behavior tracker where we kind of look at it into more of a daily incident or a daily occurrence of the incident. And then we do share that information with you guys as we're creating plans and coming up with strategies together. So when we do have an incident that is egregious in nature, we do on those situations take immediate disciplinary action, and this could look different for the student depending on, you know, again, like I mentioned before, we really teach to each child and where they're at as far as their learning and their understanding of these incidents. So we have looked at in-school suspension, where again, we might remove them from the classroom to make sure we keep everybody safe. And then there have been instances where we might request that the family keep the student home for a couple days, just while the team kind of regroups and comes up with a plan to ensure we can reintegrate them back into the classroom safely. Julia, I see that you have your hand up.
Yes, I just have one question. Does self-harm fall under incident reviews?
That's a great question. Yes, self-harm does fall under incident reviews. What we do is just like any other incidents, they would write it on an incident report when it's occurring. And when those incidents, we see that pattern, that's where we start having those meetings and internal discussions on what's going on. If the student does have multiple services on site with us, you know, maybe they're part of our academy and they have BPS and they have our therapy, then we do what we call internal team meetings as well, where we kind of all get together just to see, are these behaviors occurring in everybody's environment, or is it one environment over the other?
I do have another question, April. I'm not 100% sure the meaning of the question. If you aren't either, I'm going to ask this person if they can ask it verbally to us at the end of the presentation. But it says, does a student with multiple incidents fall in their track ranking?
I'm not sure I understand the track ranking piece, but I can assure you that when multiple incidents are occurring, you parents are communicated with, and we are always working as a team to come up with a plan to, you know, identify why is this behavior occurring, one of our key things that we teach our staff is behavior is communication. So they're trying to get a need met. It's our job to figure out what that need is and then teach them the appropriate way to get that need met. But I'm not sure what was meant on the track ranking piece.
May I ask a question, April? Just wondering, when we're talking about self-harm or self-injurious behavior, that may not necessarily trigger the same outcome as a student who's participating in outwardly to aggression towards another student or staff and or property, correct? We address them separately, although we're tracking them similarly. We would not necessarily address them the same way as far as our student handbook and potential disciplinary processes, if you will. I just wanted to make sure we differentiate that.
Yes, and that is accurate. For those students who are engaging in self-injurious behavior, we are, they would still follow this process as far as documenting it, and we're coming up with strategies together to work to decrease that behavior. However, that disciplinary action does not come into play for those instances. So I do want to take a moment to talk about some prevention strategies that we have in place. We do work really hard to make sure that our staff are trained in identifying all of these pieces. So everybody here at Life does receive a Keys to Behavior training. During that training, they are learning about the 4 functions of behavior. They are learning about reinforcement strategies, along with, antecedent strategies, how to assess the student's motivation, how to find ways to engage them in activities. For a lot of our classroom staff, it's ways to engage with multiple students at all times. With our ratios, they do really work to make sure that they're engaging with their entire group. And during these Keys to Behavior, we also implement our body positioning training. So our staff are trained in ways to position their body to prevent injury to the staff and to the student as well. They receive this training ongoing, and we also do fidelities to ensure that they're maintaining those skills. We also have a no staff treat alone policy. So with this, we do not allow for any staff to be alone with a student. If a teacher might be, working through a moment with a student and the class needs to leave, they would call for support, and a member of leadership would come in the room just so they were not left alone. We do also have our support calls policy on campus. So we have our director support calls where a member of the director team would come on would respond to the call. And that might be, maybe they need an extra set of hands. They might need some help in the classroom or transitioning from one place to another. And then we also have our behavior support calls. So our behavior support calls are initially taken by our behavior support coach, along with myself and other members of the leadership team. And, these are for some of those behaviors that might be a little bit more escalated, where this behavior support coach would help manage the behavior and ensure that safety, we're getting to that safe point of that. We also have our medical calls on campus. So we have our health and safety administrator who does respond to these medical calls. It could be anything from a seizure to, a student is having a medical concern and she needs to get there to assess the situation. So we also have our tap out policy, that we really work to ensure that all of our staff are utilizing this. If a staff member is with a student and maybe they've been managing a behavior, or maybe the student has just had a moment and, they've kind of come back and everybody's good, and the staff just need to take a break and maybe they need to go take a walk or get a drink of water, they would call for a tap out. At this time, again, another member of leadership would come and switch that staff out and then give that staff a moment to just kind of regroup. Julia, I see that you have your hand up.
Yes, I do have a question. It was actually from your last slide, and I didn't catch it before we switched. But the question is, if my child requires more supervision, would it be possible to request a lower ratio for him? Example, if he gets a 5-to-1 ratio, could we get something like a 3-to-1 or a 2-to-1?
So that is a good question. Now, some of that is dependent on the service that they might be receiving. You know, if it's academy time, our ratios in our classrooms run at a 1-to-3, 1-to-4, depending on the classroom. And with that, we understand that every once in a while a student might need a little bit more help, but we've got to make sure that we're teaching those skills to help them be successful in that group setting, along with maintaining it as well. We do have, like I mentioned, those support calls to help in those situations where we might need to provide a little bit of additional support. However, for longer term support within the classroom setting, we have our ABA department where if the student is part of our ABA department, we kind of collaborate with them and maybe look at identifying times in which the student might require some additional support. We also work really closely with outside ABA providers. So a lot of times, we'll set a meeting and the outside ABA providers and the BCBA would say, okay, let's have them supported during this time and also allow for those pieces. It gets a little bit trickier when it's a DDD funded service. And that's because of the ratios along with the staffing that we have on campus. So if the student's in a 1-to-4, 1-to-5 ratio, and then they require a lower ratio, DDD will come back and tell us that, they need a 1-to-3 or a 1-to-2. But then at that point, if we don't have the staff to facilitate that ratio, then that's where it gets a little bit harder to implement. Okay, Julia, I think or is that the last one? Perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and hand this back to Miss Ashley.
April. So this is our global communication. We utilize a communication platform referred to as Blooms. And every single program, classroom will utilize this. And you could see day-to-day activities on here, just information about the classroom specifically, upcoming events, photos, and a lot more things. But we also utilize this platform to share when we do have the lockdown drills, the fire drills, and if there was an emergency that was to take place, this is where we would be posting that information. So we always try to be at 100% for each program or classroom with our parents to make sure that we have 100% of them on there. So they always see that communication. We have had to utilize this for a reverse 911 in the past, and it worked out great. We also will send out emails as well, but on the Blooms, you can just kind of see it in real time, and we're able to add comments and just kind of update throughout the process. And our families really liked that and gave great feedback that they could see that and utilize that platform for those things. The email is our last resort, just because sometimes it's easier to check Blooms than it is emails. A lot of our families get notifications via text for Bloom, so they can see that again in that real time. So the notification comes directly to their phone as a text message, so they can see that. One more thing I want to add about Bloom, sorry. We also will post a lot of global stuff on there. So it's not just the classroom-based things, but any upcoming events for the organization as a whole. A lot, Miss Margaret will send emails. All of those are posted to the website. If we have any upcoming fundraisers or anything like that that's global, that will also be posted. You will see when you are invited to Blooms, typically it's either by me or an admin that helps us do that. They when we post on there, we can also see who views all of those things. So it kind of helps us to know what our percentage is in utilizing that. All right, I'm going to hand it back over to Miss Tammy.
Thanks, Ash. So as Ashley said, some of the things that go on that global communication are some of our parent support groups. So for those of you that have been part of the Life family for a while or are new to the Life family, one of the things we offer here is free parent resource groups. Sometimes they're on site and they're live and they're interactive, and sometimes they're pre-recorded. So I have a couple up on our website already that talk about different barriers that parents have come and asked for support with. So those are up there. You can view them at any time. The ones that are live are usually scheduled every other month or so. And then you would come onto campus either with or without your child, depending on what the barrier target goal we're working on. And we work on those skills together. So we had done some in the past, like AAC support, where you come in with your kid, we help model and help train those things so that you have a really good understanding of how that barrier can be overcome, and you have it through the support of Life at no cost to you. Now, we also have recently opened up a consultation side. So you can get parent training from a BCBA outside of being part of the Life family or being part of our ABA department here. So as long as you meet the qualifications, the funders, all of the things that we need, that is absolutely something we have started doing, because we understand that not everybody can have their kid in every service, but we still want to support you in all of the things that you want to get done and the goals you want to achieve for your family. Okay, Brittany, perfect. One of those things that came up was the interactions outside of these walls. So what happens when our children leave this campus? So, you know, we do everything we can here to modify all the environments to make sure that all of the people here are safe and successful. But some of the things we come across that I've heard from families is, what happens when we go to the store? What happens when we're out in public? What happens if I get into an accident? So what we started doing was reaching out to our community partners. We started with a partnership with GPD, and Gilbert sends in their recruits as part of their learning to be an officer. So they come in and they get a hands-on training on what it's like to work with individuals in this population. And it's been really, really eye-opening. We started that, I think, like 2 years ago now. It's been really successful. The recruits love it. The families and the kids get to interact with the officers on both our spring event and our Christmas events, just to make sure that we are really connecting the idea of, you are safe here, but you are also safe when you leave here. And this is how we're going to do that. So we took that idea and then we expanded it. We expanded it to fire and rescue. We expanded it to the dispatch, working with our students on, here are the things you need to do if you need to call 911. Here's the bare minimum. Here are the things they might be asking or looking for information. And we start teaching to those skills. We also have dental assistants that come in. We know that some of those are big barriers for people. So our kids who really struggle with going to the dentist without sedation are getting that practice when we're having those dental students come in and we're having them do a quick screening, that they can then acclimate to, okay, this individual is in scrubs, you know, it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. We also have nurses from U of A and Chandler Gilbert that come in, and as part of their rotation, they come in and they interact and they observe and they, you know, they sit and watch how we interact and the things that we can do that we can eventually teach them to be successful when they're outside of these walls. So that whole slide has a lot of what I just told you in word vomit, but that's really what it comes down to, is that we love what we do here, and we want to make sure that when you leave this gate, that you can do those things and the community can do those things for you. So you're not beholden to this property. All right, Brittany, this one's you, and you're going to talk about how those community partnerships are changing the world.
Yeah, I'm happy to say that. I feel like Life is becoming a trailblazer. And one of those reasons is because recently members of leadership, myself included, we were able to present at a targeted event readiness forum or a TERF, and we produced resources for other individuals to support staff and consumers with access and functional needs. And those needs that are complex, both medically and with diagnosis. And so with this event, we were able to provide an opportunity to represent our emergency protocols and to contribute to the Arizona School District's planning and hopefully offer a better understanding of the success that can occur regardless of the diagnosis, regardless of the property, the school. And further, we participated in a facilitated discussion to share information and what kind of impact we have made to emergency planning and preparedness. So with this, we are continuing to work with other individuals such as the AZSILC, the Arizona Department of Health Services, Coyote Crisis Collaborative, the Arizona School Risk Retention Trust or the Trust, Arizona Center for Disability Law, and other Arizona school districts to help them prepare for emergencies for individuals of this population. And we hope to continue to provide more resources across the state. And it's honestly been a very rewarding experience with all of our hard work over the last 8 years. So with this, I do hope to bring it to an end. This is a QR code that you are able to scan and have access to our most current processes. And I am happy to now open the floor for questions.
So Brittany, I actually have some questions that were directly messaged to me. The first ones are going to be for you. The first one being, during a lockdown, what if someone knocks on doors? How do they keep inside kids safe while ensuring anyone who belongs there can come in?
That's actually a great question, and it's something that we practice during our drills. Recalling back to the summary, our staff are required to do a full sweep. And so in that moment, they're supposed to open the door, make a full sort of understanding of who needs to come in, who needs that help. And once that door is closed and it's locked, it will not open again unless you are released by leadership or EMS. So I have often knocked on doors. And sometimes it's to see if there's a reaction or a response. Sometimes it's to see if staff understand protocols. But when that door is locked, it will not open for anyone knocking.
Thank you. My next question is, the entrance is glass. Should there be a breach of security, how will the lockdown message get relayed to all staff and consumers?
That's also another good question, and one that was brought to our attention. We had an individual with Gilbert PD come and do an assessment on site recently to identify barriers to our facility. We were going to apply for a grant, and one of them is windows. And so to address that part of the question first, there is some resources that we hope to eventually utilize grant monies for to help in situations where there's glass, because there are doors with the glass windows. To answer the second part of your question, when that breach occurs, our front desk and anyone in that area know exactly how to immediately respond to the danger. And individuals are required to immediately get away from the threat. So the first observing individual will identify where the threat is, what the characteristics of that threat is, and in an attempt prior to the individual being able to enter, they will try and lock or get themselves to safety as well. And as that happens, they will then contact 911 services, and hopefully everyone was able to hear and start making their way away from that front area where all that glass is. And I hope I answered your question.
There is a follow-up to that question. Can we do a fundraiser for this? I think this is in reference to, you said we applied for a grant. So they were asking, is this something we could fundraise for?
I have a list of things that I would like to do to improve the security for life, which is why we were looking at the grant. So I would never say no to a fundraiser. And if that's something you'd like to do, please reach out, and I'd love to be able to assist, because our property, it needs a few things to be in that place. And that's why we were hoping to get that grant. But we do work with the resources we have. And so I'm thankful that you brought that up. Thank you.
Right, I have another question here. I'm not quite sure who's gonna answer this. I'm thinking it might be April, but it's kind of open to anyone. Will you ever welcome a PTA for collaboration of admin, teachers, and parents?
So in the past, we have had a PTA and we did have to discontinue it with COVID, but that's not to say that's not something we would bring back. So if you are interested in getting more information and kind of seeing what that might look like for the future school years, please reach out to me and I'd be happy to chat with you.
Thank you, April. The next question actually is, you can also answer, is life at full capacity? I'm constantly telling families how we thank God for life and refer them, but was curious, is there room in the academy or not?
Oh, I appreciate you sharing that about our school and getting the word out there. I would encourage you to have people reach out to Sasha, who does oversee that intake process, and they'd be happy, or she'd be happy to answer their questions and get them on our wait list if we don't have availability immediately.
Thank you. Do students get issued student ID cards?
I'll take this one too. So we do have our junior high and high school classroom that do make our staff ID cards. We do not issue them for students and they do not need them. However, if a classroom teacher decides, you know what, we're gonna have everybody have a student ID, they can absolutely put in that request, of course, with parent permission.
Is there a student or family directory for families to collaborate and identify each other with proper info release?
Okay, I'll take this one also. So on Blooms, each of the families' information is shared within the classroom. We do not have anything that would share as a center, you know, just for HIPAA and make sure that we're not sharing information with of parents and their students. We do offer many on-site events, so I would really encourage you to come to our Christmas festival and our spring fling, where we offer those opportunities for parents to get to know each other and to come together in a safe place.
Thank you. That's all the questions that I have right now in the chat. But I do know that it's open if anybody wanted to verbalize a question instead of putting it in the chat.
And Julia, I think I just would like to leave, if I could, with this. If there was a topic that you feel like we should have spoke about or that we didn't cover, I really want to encourage you to reach out, whether it's to me personally or to whoever you work with, your teachers or other directors. But again, this is such an important topic, and our overall objective of ensuring safety for those we serve, but also the comfort and sense of security and safety for you families. So if there was something specific we didn't address, please help us. This was our first one that we did like this. We hope to do these annually now. So please feel free to reach out to us and let us know if we missed a topic.
Tammy, we do have a parent raising their hand. Are you able to unmute them?
He did. He unmuted.
I just had a statement, and I hope all the other parents think the same way. If this hour doesn't prove how amazing the school is and all you are, I don't know what is. You guys are amazing. Just had to say it. Sorry. That's it. No questions. Just you guys rock.
We appreciate that,
Thank
Scott.
you.
It's really, really helpful.
Thank you, Scott. That means a lot. I very, very much appreciate that. Thank you. And for all the other previous kind words, it really does matter to us, and you are who we serve and who we come to work to serve every day, you and your loved ones. So we don't take that for granted. And I appreciate so much hearing those kind words and knowing that the work we're doing matters. And we just want to continue to do better and to do more. And with your help, we'll do that.
Okay, if there are no more questions, I'm going to stop the recording. Once we get this all posted on the website, I think we'll try and send out a communication to let you know in case there's anything you want to review or reference. Is anybody have anything else before I go or before we kind of close up shop? Okay, then I am going to stop the recording now. And again, like we said, thank you so much, guys, for coming out tonight, and listening and chiming in. I know it's difficult, especially when you have little kids. If you have questions, by all means, reach out to your program director, reach out to the front desk. Somebody will get the communication to where it needs to go if you can't find the person you're looking for. Otherwise, thanks, guys, and have a good night.